Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It'll come as a surprise to absolutely no one that the Scottish education system is failing. It's going from a peak and a high where it was regarded as one of the world's best, down to where it's so bad that even the SNP removed it from World League tables out of sheer embarrassment. But then this is not surprising when you consider that nearly half of all Scottish schools haven't been inspected in over 10 years. Now, parents will locally be able to talk about which are the good and bad schools, but without that knowledge, how can the Department of Education target those schools which are deemed to be bad or failing? It's impossible. Jenny Gilruth, the current Education Secretary, has a hell of a job on her hands, but I wouldn't expect her to be able to do it. She's failed at every other job she's had, so I think it's probably a terminal decline for education in Scotland. Let's take a look at this article, see what's going on and see if anything can be done to save the schools. Here goes. So almost half of Scotland's schools haven't been inspected for a decade under slipshod SNP regime. Well, everything they do is slipshod, everything they do fails. It is on a series of fail after fail after fail. So don't expect any different here. Parents are being left in the dark about the state of their local school, as just 57% of state schools and 54% of independent schools have been inspected since 2013. Almost half of the schools have not been inspected for a decade, leaving parents in the dark, and the problem has now been added to SNP Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth's overflowing in tray. Well, the only reason you have an overflowing in tray is because you're not doing the work. And boy, she's not doing the work, because work is hard when you are stupid. Alarming figures obtained by the Scottish Conservatives show just 57% of state schools and 54% of independent schools were inspected after 2012-2013. Education Scotland is tasked with assessing the condition of schools, although the SNP government is planning to replace the organisation with a new inspections agency, perhaps one that they can control and therefore will make political decisions rather than the decisions necessary to have good independent schools. Yes, the schools are crap, but hey, we praise the SNP government because they're brilliant. Inspections were halted during the COVID-19 pandemic, but resumed at the start of the 2022 academic year. Liam Kerr, education spokesman for the Scottish Tories, said the figures were completely unacceptable as they left parents in the dark about potential failings at their children's schools. Well, let's take the word potential out of that. We've seen how bad the education system has fallen. So there's no potential failings. They are straight up, obvious, blatant failings. He urged Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth to act to ensure all schools are inspected on a routine basis. Well, it should happen, but I mean, like I say, don't expect much from her. She's a bit thick. And also lazy. The fact that almost half the Scottish schools have gone a decade without inspection is completely unacceptable, he says. We need a rigorous, reliable and above all, regular inspection system so that parents are aware of how their child's school is performing and so that schools know what they need to do to improve what they are offering pupils. Well, one of the things they need to do is lose all identity politics, all the woke offerings that they keep pushing, all the anti-parent things that they do. They need to open up. They need to say exactly what they're teaching in sex education classes, and let's not have this culture of let's make it our little secret that they keep pushing. But these figures show that in too many cases we're kept in the dark over the performance of our schools on the SNP's watch. The SNP do not want people to know what's going on in schools because people would be horrified. And that is one of the reasons they've sort of laid back on the inspections. Because if people truly knew what was going on in the schools, what these teachers were doing and saying to these children, there would be riots. And I've reported on it many times about what goes on in schools. People are horrified every time. I'm surprised they're not actually having protests outside the gates of every school. Anyway, he said that's not good enough when despite the best efforts of dedicated teachers, Scotland's education system is stretched to breaking point after 16 years of SNP neglect. Now I did a thing 2 days ago and it was showing that all these schools that have got No spare capacity. Some schools over 100% of capacity. They're teaching children in corridors and cupboards. It's that bad. Because nobody wants to put money into the system, build another school or extend the school, hire another teacher, because it's expensive. And yet they can amazingly find money for all sorts of things that they shouldn't be spending money on. 2 million a year on an independence minister and his team and staff and things. Anyway, Jenny Gilruth must urgently get on top of this issue and ensure that regular school inspections are put in place for the benefit of parents, pupils and teachers and the country as a whole. You don't need an uneducated country. Although the SNP want that because they want a population too dumb to question what they're doing. And for 16 years they've had that. You're now getting a second generation of dumb under the SNP. It works. At a time when the attainment gap remains enormous, teacher morale is at rock bottom and classroom physicality is rising, these staggering statistics are proof that education never was and never will be a priority of the SNP government. Well, it absolutely is a priority, but their priority is to make sure that people aren't educated. An education spokesman said, in Scotland, schools are inspected on a proportionate basis using a sampling approach rather than a cyclical model, which is no use whatsoever. You need a cyclical model. The criteria used to select schools includes the type of school, deprivation, balance across authorities, as well as other factors, including local circumstances. Not good enough. Every school, every single school needs to be inspected. He said, additionally, in Scotland overall, responsibility for the quality of education and securing continuous improvement sits with the local authority, in line with the 3-level approach to evaluating and improving education. Firstly, he said, schools have a responsibility to evaluate their performance. Secondly, local authorities have a responsibility to the quality of education in their area. And third level is the inspection carried out by HM Inspectors of Education. But those inspectors need to go to every single school. At least once. Say every 3 years. Something like that. Anyway, I shall round off there. Come up and there's another picture of the world's laziest, stupidest... Oh, no, not the world's laziest, stupidest. Top 3. There's other people in her party. Anyway, coming up. What hope do children have going through, 11 years, say minimum, probably 13 years, of education under a government that doesn't inspect schools and for whom education is not a priority because the last thing they want is an educated population? No chance at all. They are creating a massive attainment gap in Scotland. Scotland's going to go into the world with an educated, or with a population of a lower education level than comparable countries. It wants to go into Europe, and it'll be like almost the stupidest country in Europe because of the lack of education, the lack of pushing children to their limit to get them to achieve even the minimum standards. And I think it's got to be deliberate policy. The decisions are made, and the people making these decisions are saying this is what we want. And so it must be absolutely a deliberate policy by the SNP to ensure that the children of Scotland are not educated to any kind of impressive level. And that's no wonder why they've removed Scotland from the World League tables. It's embarrassment for them. Also, they didn't want to be caught out. Well, now they're caught. They're going to have to do something. Otherwise, Scotland's got no chance. What do? Well, you vote the SNP out. That's what you do. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you see and hear on the channel, do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's your children. Fight every inch for every bit of schooling they can get. And if you don't like the school, make sure you and all the other parents are around that gate demanding improvement. And bye.